Hello and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. This means a lot to me that you do, and I really value that you show up for me and connect with me. At the moment, I am running a 25% off sale on my 45-minute astrological natal chart reports. So those personal readings where I go in and look at your chart are now available for purchase on my website, and you send in your details to me and I go in and conduct a reading for you that is recorded, and then you get to keep the download and you get to go back and revisit it as many times as you need. So that is available, so please go ahead and check that out. Today I'm going to get on with this video. This is another video that I just wanted to jump on and talk about. There are no notes here, I'm just going off my own knowledge like I always do. So I'm just going to be explaining to you what is Lilith in astrology. What is Lilith in astrology? So for those that don't know, this is a very taboo topic within astrology. The last video that I did was talking about Chiron, the wounded healer, and things that we have to heal within our life and multiple lives. And today I'm going to be sharing with you some information on Lilith. So for a lot of astrologers, this is also something that can freak people out. It is also something that a lot of religious people get very upset about when it comes to the study of occult science or the study of astropsychology, which is what ultimately astrology is. It is astropsychology and the study of the types and patterns of energies and living things, which is what astrology is within the human world, okay, and the spiritual world. So for those that don't know, there is a very Catholic aspect to astrology, and it does pull in the Placidus system in the Western world from many different mythologies that are all connected to planetary correlations. So if you've heard of the black moon, you may have also heard of something called the black sun, which is also something that Bill Gates is wanting to do. It is very occult based. It is very evil. I won't get into the black sun today. I'm just going to talk about the black moon concept and what all of this is in relation to. It is in relation to the story of Adam and Eve. And so this story is connected to points within astrology and within your own chart. All right. So yes. So when it comes to Lilith, what we're looking at here is not a planet or an asteroid like Chiron was. What we're looking at here is a point within someone's astrological natal chart. So a natal chart is a snapshot of where the planets were based at your time of birth. And so then someone like myself goes in and we look at all of the degrees and the planets and the houses, and we can understand how your life is going to play out. So yes, there is determinism versus free will. All right. So if you don't know this, there is actually already a preset thing happening within existence. Existence exists. So the day shapes us and we shape the day. I did mention that in my last video. So there is an interplay of our own projection within the physical world playing out, but we still have free will. Otherwise, what would be the point of existence? So I'm not going to freak you out too much, but if you haven't noticed, and I think at this point, something very interesting is happening in the world. I'm noticing a lot of people are getting sick and tired and fed up with the Matrix. They know the game is rigged. They know the world is rigged in lots of different ways. The workforce is rigged. The housing game is rigged. People are starting to wake up and see that a lot of these systems and structures that are created by humans are there to oppress and control other humans. And so what we're seeing here in some interesting ways is people that are starting to turn to more holistic ways of living and more spiritual ways of living. We know, just off the topic of Lilith for a second, we know that psychology and a lot of psychologists and a lot of psychoanalytic people don't even acknowledge the presence of the soul. They don't even acknowledge the presence of spirituality at all. So they treat other people purely based on a physiological aspect of their mind. And, that's basically part of Big Daddy Pharma, where they just keep coming back in, getting drugs, and that's a business. What I do and what astrologers do and spiritual, shamanic people or people that are into this level of spirituality, we need to look at your life path. We need to see how everything is playing out. We need to see, and we can see bumps that are coming up in the road and multiple roads within your life. So yes, you have returns. You have a Chiron return. You have a Saturn return. These things are real. You have a Pluto return. Yes, and yes, if you don't know, there is also such a thing as a Lilith return every 9 years, which is also tied into the gestational time period that it would take for a human to have a baby. And Lilith is associated with babies. But the part that people freak out about mostly when it comes to Lilith is that Lilith is known as the queen of demons. And she has been vilified and made out to be something that is about sin and about shame and about the dark feminine, and that it is a rebellion against the patriarchy or against authority. And so a lot of feminist people have really embraced Lilith. They worship Lilith. In the thumbnail that I created today for this video, you'll see in the background behind the yellow text a crescent moon with the feminine symbol facing down. That is actually the symbol of Lilith, but Lilith herself actually does have a sigil. So if you don't know what a sigil is, just cutting it really simply, is a shape or a sign that can be encased or, made or by, with your finger in blood or your finger in ink, whatever. It's a drawing, however way you do it in pen. It is a sigil that is used as a calling card to the spiritual world. Now, there are a whole variety of different sigils that exist every day that we don't even realize. For example, most of the companies that run the world, the biggest companies in the world, they all have sigil bases to them. For example, the apple that you see for the company Apple is like an apple with a bite missing out of it. The reference point to that is obviously Eve biting out of the apple, taking a bite of the apple. And of course, the apple was forbidden knowledge. All right, so everything ties back to these types of things. So people don't realize that sigils are actually encased in a lot of what people in the modern world here call logos. The company logos have sigils, and those sigils are connected usually to the demonic world, the lower astral world. All right. So a lot of the correlations that happen in relation to the black moon is when the moon is in its furthest position away and it's tilted in its darkest aspect, that is what we know as Lilith, the black moon, or Lilith's black moon. So when you think of astrology and you look at the moon sign, you know that the moon sign is the subconscious mind. It is emotions. It is water. It's a lunar aspect. So all the planets in astrology have a correlation, and the moon is femininity. It's instincts. It's your internal, private, most receptive and private nature. So imagine the aspect of a moon sign in a person that is in rage or a person that is angry. All right. So we know that in the world, the most incarcerated two signs the most incarcerated, when I say incarcerated, that means jail time, people that are serving time in jail, incarceration, that is always Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, ruled by emotions, the tidal pool, Gemini, and Sagittarius. Okay, so those three signs are the most incarcerated signs that we usually come across in the Western world. But I always find it interesting because if you've ever met a Cancerian that is dark-sided in nature, they are particularly vicious, as can be a Scorpion as well. I mean, we all can be, but to certain degrees. But emotions can be used to fuel rage and fuel power. You know, the term anger can get things done. But anger in itself is a cover emotion. And there is a lot of aspects that are tied into Lilith in astrology when someone is rageful, vengeful. And in a lot of cases, a lot of people look at Lilith without really wanting to go deeper like I'm doing now and look at the backstory of what this archetype is really based on. So Lilith is like I mentioned, the furthest point of when the moon is tilted in its darkest position. So you might hear, I think it was Pink Floyd's album, The Dark Side of the Moon, all right? Or even, I think it was even used in the Transformers movie as well, Transformers Dark Side of the Moon, or something along those lines. You will see and get an understanding about what that is really kind of trying to communicate. So it is a world gone into darkness. It is an energy point that is going off and doing its own thing. All right. So Lilith was traditionally the first wife that was created by the master creator, Yahweh or God, as Adam's wife. And it was said, and this has been referenced at 2 points within the Bible. I have the details. I know them. I've got them here with me on my phone. But one of them is a reference point to her being made of the same form that Adam was made from, which was made of clay or whichever. So she came from him and she was made from the same component of him as a counterpoint to him in the feminine. So in the Kabbalah, we have Binah and Hukmah. Binah is the receptive energy and Hukmah is an active energy. In nature, and even in plants and in all aspects of the divine, all things are generally separated by form and structure in the male or the female, which is the feminine or the masculine. And of course, we have the dark feminine, which is what Lilith embodies to most people when they look at astrology or they look at this like reference point. So she is known as the dark dweller. And there is a lot of association with Lilith within the Goadic system of the demonic, of the demons. There is a Goetia system, which I can talk about on another video. I did actually do a video on the Goetia, but it was actually removed here. So I'm not sure why YouTube took that one down, but I'm just sharing with you. I'm keeping this as general as I can because otherwise I could just go on and on and on. And I'm really into this stuff. I love talking about it. So the story point of it is, just fast forwarding here, is that Lilith was made of the same form as what Adam was, but it was said that she was only made for mating. She was only made to be his wife, and that he was the one that was to control her, or the one that was to basically make her his slave. And to her, she saw that as wrong because she saw herself as equal to him, and that she didn't have to listen to what he would tell her to do, to obey him. So Lilith, being a free-thinking agent, rebelled against Yahweh or God and declined what had been set in her predeterminism for her life as one of the first beings created. So a lot of the later scriptures erased a lot of the mentioning of Lilith and how she became this force. We're talking about an entity here. So I want to make that really clear. This is an entity. You can channel Lilith. She is one of the only aspects of the divine within astrology that has a sigil like this where you can directly try and communicate with this energy force. So after she rebelled against her nature of what she was told to do, she was basically cast away, cast out of paradise and cast out of the Garden of Eden. And there it is said that she went to the lower astral and was kind of banished with Lucifer. All right, so there's a lot of tie-ins into Luciferic energy, but that's for another video for another time. So it said that she flew away in some cases, or that she walked away of her own free will, because it was, I think, when I think of this story, I often think of, if you guys have seen the film, The Alien Covenant, at the start of that film, when Waylon creates his perfect android, the character that's played by Michael Fashionbender. I'm sorry if I can't get his name right. But the character of David is a reference to the statue of the statue is a reference point to the statue of David, which is a human making something in their own perfection and then expecting that being to obey their master. And in the start of that film, it's a very powerful point, which I think is relevant to me talking about Lilith here today, which is that David questions his master, and David questions why he was like, if he says to his master, if you created me, then who created you? And Waylon didn't like that because he's like being challenged. His authority is being challenged. One of the things that people will often talk about is a sadomasochistic nature that is associated with the concept of God in a conventional Christianic sense, which is that someone or a being created you in their own image, then created a maze, puts you in the maze like a little rat, and then punishes you if you disobey the system. All right? So all of that is connected to this point that is referred to as Lilith. Okay, so I hope all of that made sense. So Lilith doesn't just apply to the divine feminine within a woman in the female form, the true female form. It is also applied to within all charts and aspects of natal charts. Okay, so I have Lilith in my chart, you have Lilith in your chart. And that aspect to where Lilith sits within your chart and the degree and the house it plays out in correlation to the rest of your chart, will determine how it's going to play out within your life. Okay, so Lilith can be is in rebellion, particularly against marriage or particularly against union. So Lilith is about freedom. It's about, okay, I mean, when I think of Lilith, it's really an aesthetic thing as well. When I think of Lilith, I personally, and I think everyone that's listening to this will have their own interpretation of what Lilith and the archetype of Lilith looks like, but it is, to me, a sophistication, and it's not like a little bubbly girl that is very sweet and like kind and just does what she's told, like a sex doll. Lilith is more like a dominatrix energy. It's like a woman that chooses, instead of like a really nude lipstick, she's choosing a blackberry lipstick and uses her sexuality and her beauty and her sensuality to attract and allure and control people and even exact revenge through sexual power. So it's about the repression of sexuality within a being and then them reversing that backwards and using it against people. All right. One of the films that comes to mind, which I highly recommend, and I think it is available here on YouTube, is a film called Girls Against Boys. And if you know that film is absolutely about Lilith in a lot of interesting ways that concept of Lilith is very strong within that film. I won't share too much about it, but if you have a moment, please go and have a watch of that film. Pre-warning, it is a very violent and dark film, but it absolutely embodies the archetype of the rage and the power of the dark feminine. All right. So like all counterpoints in existence, taking something too far can be dangerous. Taking something too extreme can be very hurtful. So that is where Lilith sits. So it's a certain point within your chart that will rebel and reverse what it's working against, particularly in matters of Venus and love. Okay, so Lilith doesn't want to be controlled. It sees love as control. And a lot of people have a mindset in their own life where they actually think that to be in love equals being trapped. Particularly in aspects of like Sagittarius, you'll see a lot of people that are Sagittarians will have a lot of fear around deep commitment because it feels that if they do that, it will take away their sexual freedom and change their personality. So I hope that made sense. So it's like when you feel weighted down in a relationship and then realizing you can't have the sexual freedom of being single while you're married or partnered to someone at one time. So Lilith is not about partnership. It's about breaking something up and kind of doing your own thing. And those that have communicated and work with Lilith know that. She's very renowned for just doing her own thing. She doesn't have to show up if you summon her. It's a very selective entity that is extremely powerful. Think when you think of these types of things, and I don't overly share a lot of this type of chat with people, but there are beings that exist out there in the universes, and think of it a little bit like the sea. Think of the sea as the universe. It's very deep, and you don't know what's out there and what's in there, like space, okay? Like in the astral realms, there are other places and worlds. And if you want to communicate with those types of beings, you have to have a very specific energy or a very specific bloodline or a very specific power that can actually bring that being into your presence and summon or call that being. Okay, not just anyone can work with certain spirits and certain aspects. The intranquil spirit is one of those things as well in the Wicca world, in the witchy world, in the occult world, that I wouldn't really recommend a person play around with or touch. That's why I don't recommend people getting involved in levels of the occult until they've had years of research and experience with any level of invocation, particularly around the Goetia. All right. So I hope all of this is making sense. So Lilith, the aspect that people find very terrifying about Lilith is that it's said that Lilith took it upon herself to seek revenge against Adam. And so she went back to Adam, and after she had left Adam, she had her own children, and God sent angels to kill her children. So then she went to Adam and exacted revenge on him by laying underneath him, as it said in the scriptures, that she did not want to lay below him. She wanted to lay above him. So she went back, submitted to him, only to have demon offspring. So that's why she's known as the mother of demons. All right. So it was also said that she was instructed by angels to return and do her duty and be what she was created to be Adam's wife. But of course, we all know who was created as Adam's wife, which was Eve, who bit an apple from the forbidden fruit of knowledge, which was given to her by Lucifer. So I hope all of this is making sense. So a lot of people see the power of this symbol of independence and freedom as the ultimate power. You will find a lot of people out there to this day will have occult groups that will be in worship of Lucifer and in worship of Lilith. It's said that she was his bride. So they kind of had an aspect where they ruled hell together. She lived in the lower astral and lives there, so yeah, it's pretty full on. So this is all the legend or the mythos that is around the aspect of what this means within your natal chart. So when we look at your natal chart, whatever sign or house that is sitting in is where it will play out. And that's what I do when I look at your chart. I look at that. So if it's in Pluto, then the Lilith that you have will be about transformation and death and rebirth. That's very scorpionic. So if it's in Mercury, it will be in the communication and intellect and how you process mental data and thoughts. So different aspects also rule different body parts, different energies within the body, within the human form. This all is connected. All right. So it's the shadow aspects of your personality, and it's about the hidden impulses and the taboo thoughts that you have and the things that you wish you could do. It's the lust, and it's something that is buried within you that needs to come out, that wants to come out. Okay, it can be quite impulsive. The Lilith feminine is Velitov, I think it's called Vitalis, which is having a vagina that is a Venus flytrap, or having a Venus flytrap within the vagina. So it is about beauty. It's about celebration of being sexually attractive. It rules the face. It rules the eyes. Surprisingly, in my own chart as a man, I have a lot of Lilith within my chart. So there is an aspect to me which really understands this archetype on levels that I won't share with you, but I feel the dark current within Lilith at times. I understand why it's there. A lot of Sagittarian impulses will sit in Lilith. And in fact, I have mentioned, which I can't really say here in this video, but yes, there is a very specific connection to Luciferic consciousness that sits within the symbol and the sign of Sagittarius, which is the angel and the demon. So the wisdom, because Lucifer is the light bringer. He is about knowledge, but it's unbridled knowledge without love, which is dangerous. All right. And then Lilith is the aspect of the lower chakra of the body, which is all about pleasure seeking. And Lilith is very closely associated with the Scarlet Witch and the color red and berries and darker aspects of the human psyche. So it's all connected to like putting someone under a spell or exacting revenge against someone for them hurting you or mistreating you. A lot of energy that is used in spell work will be connected to the scorned female, or a woman that is of hating of men, or a woman that is trying to seduce men. The Whore of Babylon is also very closely associated with the Queen of Demons as well, with Lilith. So it's and you'll see that in a lot of occult groups as well. They often have a member of the group that may even be, depending on what type of group it is. There are so many occult groups out there, but it would be like a whore within the group. It's depending on what level it's at. You may have seen things of that nature in a film. I do recommend the film. It's an interesting film. It was called Eyes Wide Shut. They did mention this, and they showcase that aspect of the darker aspects within the occult to age stuff, if you know what I mean. It's pretty fucked up. But yes, in terms of where it sits within your chart, that is how it plays out within the chart. So it's all subject to the point where it is. So that's where it's going to be represented. And yeah, I hope all of this is making sense, because a lot of people are like, what is Lilith? What does that placement mean? And I hope it means that you understand that it is the furthest point from the moon's orbit in your birth chart. So it's a pretty fucking intense, powerful thing. Think of like poison ivy for a lot of the Batman villains. I think like Batman the animated series, like Catwoman, like poison ivy, they all have an aspect of, I would say, Lilith within their character design and within their own like archetype. They have like Catwoman, for example. She's very sexy and she's very independent. This is not a woman that wants a man. It's a woman that takes what she wants. She's a cat burglar. She likes to play with the edge of being caught. It's like a bad girl, that type of thing. Secretly she loves Bruce, and Bruce kind of loves her, but he can't arrest her because he can't date her because he's got to uphold his morality. Lilith deals in playing with morality. All right. There is an aspect to the lower astral, which I will mention here as well, that is connected to Lilith and Lucifer with a lot of inversion as well, and perversion and degeneracy. This can happen particularly within the Luciferic consciousness if everything is about freedom and rebellion and freedom for freedom's sake within someone's identity, then there is no structure. And because there is no structure or discipline or sacrifice, and sacrifice is Christ consciousness, then it's kind of like people living on a loop of just living in hedonism and pleasure seeking, and they never really kind of grow. A lot of gay men live in that type of archetype where they never actually mentally grow. They kind of are in a lot of like arrested developmental states where they don't really mature. Everything's about having fun. Everything is about being reduced to like just play, so it's really fucked up when you think about it, because the time that we have here in the human world goes very, very quickly. And so when you don't start building real relationships and you start to age, you can actually end up alone with not really any real deep friends because you didn't go deep with other people. That's why I always encourage people to always have a spiritual system. And I don't really care or mind too much overly what that is, but it is a point when I meet someone where I have to understand, and you have to understand, that a human or a person can't really connect with you if there isn't a deeper sense of connection to something else within themselves first. They can't give you something that they don't have. So if you are meeting people that are living in a very darker aspect of the Lilith world or the Luciferic world, well, it's going to be quite difficult to build a connection with them, to be really honest, of any level that isn't beyond objectifying someone. Because when you objectify someone, you're turning them into an object. You're objectifying them. You're removing the human aspect of them. You're reducing them to a doll. All right, so I hope that made sense. So different aspects within astrology is where it will sit. So say, for example, I'll give some examples. If your Lilith was sitting in Aries, this would be about self-identity. Aries is the baby. It has to learn who it is. Aries is the child. So it's about struggling with your own sense of self and feeling comfortable within your own skin. All right, so that's what it means in Aries. If your Lilith was sitting in Taurus, this could be an perception of sensuality. We looked at that in the Chiron, the wounded healer, which is someone who might trade possessions and objects for emotions. All right. Lilith can be very selfish in Taurus. It's very self-serving. It's all like me first type of thing. Gemini in Lilith is about communication and expression. So it's about someone who is struggling and feels trapped and has can feel trapped in communication, or has very self-destructive habits that work against communication, because Gemini is about communication. So yeah, I hope this made sense, but it's always interesting to look at where your Lilith sits within your astrological chart. What house is it playing out? What degree is it in? What sign is it in? And then look, and I'll give you a hot tip. Always make sure when you look at a chart, if you're new to astrology, just double check to see if the Lilith is in harmony with the Venus or the Venus is in harmony with the Mars. All right, so harmonic aspects to charts, and I have mentioned we have malefic houses or malefic signs or planets, and then we have malefic planets as well. So if we have agitation around the Venus in someone's chart, you're going to have problems with the Lilith if they're not in harmony. So there are forces within your own psyche which will work against your own life, and that's why you have people like me which look at astrology and understand this. Yes, it's very complex. I hope I haven't freaked anyone out with any of this level of information today, but this is what the black Lilith is, the black moon is. And of course, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, I think there's a lot of self-empowerment that can be found within this as well. I'm open to understanding this. So I'm not into obedience and someone being told what to do and living a life under someone else's rule. I am about freedom, but I also understand that if we don't have any level of structure, well, then everything will just collapse, you know, and so that will become another way of control for other people. It's exhausting. It's so exhausting. All of this really is interesting. And yeah, so I get it. I understand. A good example before I get out of here, I think, I'm not sure if it was Megan Fox, I think has actually publicly said that she has, you know, she very much embodies that the archetype of Lilith, you know, the archetype of the Scarlet Witch, the archetype of a man-eating woman. And I think there was a film called Jennifer's Body which looked at this aspect as well, where a girl's value was based on her beauty, and then she weaponized it in a way where she was being or had been possessed or taken over by a demonic force. So yes, there is an aspect to astrology which a lot of astrologers won't like to look at this type of thing, but it's important to look at it because when we look at it, we can kind of understand that it is there, and there are darker forces that are in astrology that a lot of people in the church get quite mad about. And that's what I mentioned at the start of this video, is that a lot of religious systems see astrology as someone trying to unpack forbidden knowledge or unpack things that humans weren't really allowed to understand or were forbidden to understand. So yeah, think of it like that. And also when I think of the dark feminine, it would be, you know, that's like a mistress or like the whore, someone that finds power in sexual liberation to reverse power struggles. Because Lilith is about a power struggle fundamentally. That's what she was being felt that she was under a power struggle and that she didn't want to be enslaved by someone else. She wanted to love because she loved someone else herself. So it's kind of a tragedy there in a way, where it's like someone who was betrothed and was created purely to be someone's toy or doll or obey her creator. So there is a rebellion here, and that's what this really is all about. It's rebelling against a preset determinism of a life that someone or something doesn't want. And I think there's power in that, you know. Okay, so I will leave it here. I know this has been a lot, and I hope you've really enjoyed this chat. I've enjoyed explaining it to you. I was thinking the other day of a girlfriend that I knew once, and she enjoyed going dancing on the dance floor, and she would not wear any knickers. And she'd like do spins on the dance floor wearing a very tight, like high skirt. And the power that gave her was definitely very Lilith energy. It's rebellion, and it's naughty, and it's sexy. Yeah. If you've got any good examples of Lilith, let me know in your comments, but leave them in the comments below. I'd love to read them. Where's your Lilith sitting? How do you feel about this video? What's your thoughts on it? I'm very open to a lot of other people's interpretation, and I really enjoy a lot of different perspectives. So this isn't a channel about, saying this is how it is. I'm just sharing with you some of my knowledge for free. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. Also, please go and book me for your Natal Chart Report. My sale will last for another few days, and then I think I'll probably switch it off. So go in there and make a booking with me, put your name in for a reading, and I will get to it as soon as I can. And thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who has supported me on my channel here and has purchased a copy of the 3rd edition of my tarot deck. It's really cool to see it coming back, and the pre-orders are open right now. So really excited about that. And yes, go and book me for a Natal Chart Report. I'd love to look at your chart. I look at charts all day. I love it. I will leave it here. Thank you. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.